there was legislation that was alive until I think about 36 hours ago that was designed to update how the state handles childcare licensing. This, of course, has to do with the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. We've done a lot of stories on this suspected fraud, a lot of stories on DCYF being sharply criticized for the high number of critical incidents with children in this state. So there was a bill moving forward. And when it cleared the House on a near unanimous vote, there were some Republican amendments that were attached to this bill to ensure that the many millions of dollars that are being spent on these programs are being closely monitored to prevent fraud and waste. Once that bill, though, got to the Senate side this week, Senator Claire Wilson, who is a senator from Federal Way, didn't like the attached amendments and ultimately killed the entire bill. So we've got some very unhappy Republican reaction to that decision from Senator Wilson. I want to share with you an interview with Representative Travis Couture, Republican from Allen. He has been working very, very hard this session on a number of bills, most of them not going anywhere, has to do with making corrections in the Department of Children, Youth, and Families when it comes to kids that are dying in homes with drug-addicted parents, when it comes to holding the agency accountable when they're responsible for funneling hundreds of millions of dollars to whether it's child in-home daycares. We've reported on this. Many of them appear to have fraud that the agency has not really been responsible for looking into. So there was a bill that passed out of the House with bipartisan support, and they attached, Representative Josh Couture and Representative Josh Menner attached a couple of amendments to that to hold some accountable at DCYF to say, okay, we're going to make sure that these millions of dollars that are going out the door are really going to real daycares, to real adult care homes, to making sure that if you've ever had something that you got your license pulled away, that's it. You're not going to be a child care provider in the state of Washington again. And that got bipartisan support. And I should mention buy-in as well from DCYF. They came in and met with Reps Couture and Penner as they crafted these amendments to attach to a bill that was moving forward. And it passed off off the House floor with near unanimous support. Moved over to the Senate side. And when Senator Claire Wilson, Democrat from Federal Way, she's my senator, I'm her constituent, when that was moving over through her committee, she didn't like those amendments attached. I should point out she is the chair of the oversight board for DCYF. She didn't like the amendments to hold them accountable. She initially just stripped those out. When Representative Couture posted on X his displeasure with that move, she ended up killing the entire bill. Here's my discussion with Representative Travis Couture about that.
I mean, it was pretty innocuous, but because it was about childcare licensing, we decided to take the forward step and add in a bunch of anti-childcare fraud measures and other things. So we got like 6 or 7 amendments into the bill, and then we voted on that bill, and it was pretty much unanimous out of the House. Then, it gets sent over to the Senate, and the Senate chair of the Human Services Committee that oversees DCYF stuff over in the Senate, Claire Wilson, she decided to drop this amendment to strip out all of the anti-fraud stuff out of the bill, which is just incredible. Like, one of the amendments was simply saying that if you got caught doing fraud as a daycare provider, that you couldn't have a license to be a daycare provider anymore. She wanted to strip that out for some reason. That's completely nuts and insane. And it just draws more questions about why is there so much fight back from the Democrats on anti-fraud measures. And as you'll recall, we worked together in the House on a community reinvestment program bill and bipartisanly passed the House because we added in some protections on that bill. But for some reason in the DCYF space, it's all different. And just to say that we negotiated with the Democrats, and Department of Children, Youth, and Families agreed on those anti-fraud amendments that we put into that bill. So I tweeted about it and I posted on social media the amendment from Claire Wilson. The next day, she had just, as the chair, which have a lot of power here in Olympia, she just, instead of litigating the amendment and the bill itself, she just killed the entire bill. So now we don't get any kind of technical fixes to childcare licensing on one hand, but we also don't get any, reasonable anti-fraud measures on the other hand.
On Friday, I also caught up with a very disappointed Representative Josh Penner. He and Couture were the ones that worked on those amendments to the bill. And he basically said, if somebody's guilty of fraud, they shouldn't be allowed to continue to defraud the agency. He was just absolutely shocked that ended up getting stripped out of the bill, and then the whole bill, being killed as a consequence. I did reach out to Senator Wilson on Thursday and again on Friday, asking to meet with her. I was told by her legislative assistant late in the day on Thursday that there was no need to have a conversation because the bill wasn't moving forward. I pressed further with some additional questions saying, did you kill the bill because of the amendments, or why did you kill the bill? I did not receive a response, at least in time for the recording of this podcast today. I am going to be putting up another article later in the day here Friday. You can see that at thecentersquare.com/Washington for more on what really happened with this. This is a huge disappointment to folks, including some Democrats that have been really making great efforts this session to make some fixes at DCYF that, have led to some really dire consequences for children and families in this state. And unfortunately, it appears another year is going forward without real change for that agency and without accountability as well. So want to let you know that on Saturday, we're going to be watching House floor action. There are several bills coming up, and I am told by some members that they are going to attempt to hold up some of the floor action with either a number of amendments or asking the president of the Senate of the House for an opportunity to read some of these things, like some of the child fatality review reports and that sort of thing. Just so that because they didn't get public hearings for these bills, this is their opportunity to sort of expose that in a very public way. So we're going to be watching that and bring you all of those updates for sure in our episode on Monday. So thank you for watching. Another week wraps up in here in Olympia. We're coming down to it. March 12th is the end of session here for 2026, and it's not going to slow down up until signing die for sure, and we'll be here every day to cover it. So thank you for watching another episode of Washington in Focus Daily. I'm Carlene Johnson. Have a great weekend.